I screwed up, and I have this YouTuber to thank for pointing it out. I used the wrong Woolworths numbers in my recent video titled, Punters Politics is wrong about coolies. He's not the only one that was wrong, I was too. I do all my work by myself, and even though I spent weeks editing this video, calculating conversions and triple checking my numbers to make sure nobody could fact check me and show that I'd made an error in my math, I only spent 2 seconds Googling Woolworths annual report for financial year 2022. And it was the South African company that came up first. Like an idiot, I just thought, oh, that's weird. I didn't even know Woolworths was a South African company. And I used their financial report instead of the Australian one.
Idiot!
So I spent all of yesterday and last night running the numbers again because I'm morally obligated to post a correction, but I'm going to leave that video up for 2 reasons. 1, I need the views. Shout out to this guy. And 2, I think if you make a mistake, you should own it. I could take the video down and repost an edited version with the correct numbers and pretend like it never happened, I never made a mistake. But that to me seems like I'm covering something up, and I'd just rather be transparent. And it will serve as a lifelong reminder to myself to quadruple check my sources, but that's enough explanation of what I got wrong and why. Fortunately for me, economics works the same across time and across geographies, so the essence of what I attempted to highlight turned out to still be correct, even though my numbers were not. You'll see in a second that even though I referenced the wrong continent, the end result is the same. Woolworths made about 2.5% profit in 2022, not 20%. Here are the corrected numbers for the Australian company we all know and have mixed feelings about, Woolworths.
What's the end result of this price gouging, you might ask? Well, you get something called crisis profits. Oxfam did this report here. I've mentioned it in another video. But let's take a look at Woolworths profits in 2022, crisis profits. Now, we'll get to the definition in a second. But they made $5.64 billion in 2022.
This is still incorrect. Here is the Woolworths annual report for 2022 from Australia. Nowhere in this report is the figure $5.64 billion mentioned. Profit is just revenue minus costs, and according to this report, revenue is $60.849 billion. Costs were $42.807 billion, which means gross profit equals $18.042 billion. But once you deduct taxes, interest, and all the rest, Woolworths' net profit in 2022 was $7.944 billion. But that's not the whole story, because in 2022, Woolworths sold a bunch of assets which totaled $6.387 billion. That's why they have this line in the report titled Discontinued Operations. It's just a fancy title that means this was a one-off. Don't expect this every year. They sold a bunch of things that could have been land, buildings, capital essentially. And now that stuff is gone and they can't make money off it again next year. You got to remember, this report is aimed at investors. You don't want to hype up your product this year and then underperform next year. Investors will lose confidence and withdraw their investment. But that's a side note. What you really want to focus on is net profit after tax from continuing operations, which is $1.547 billion. Because as a percentage, that equals 2.54% net profit margin, which is how much Woolworths actually makes after you spend $100 at one of their stores. That's what Punters Politics was really talking about, whether Woolworths was ripping us off. And at 2.54% profit margins, I'm just not seeing the rip-off. So, in the end, the point remains the same. Woolworths is making about $2.50 for every $100 you spend. They don't constitute a monopoly, duopoly, or oligopoly. They're not price gouging, they're not price fixing. And if you want to take away Woolworths' profit, don't shop there, because you have that kind of power. You were born free.